Dear guests, I would like to invite our moderator and the panelists to take their seats, please. Our moderator for the session is Richard de Belder, Advisory Board Member, UK Islamic Finance Council, UK. And the panelists are Zalina Shamsuddin, Head of Strategy and Business Development, Capital Markets Malaysia. Dr. Davut Ashraf, Acting Manager, Islamic Development Bank Group. Tariq Malaika, Program Lead for Sukuk and Capital Markets, ICD, Saudi Arabia. Rieshanti Rohuri, Deputy Director, Ministry of Finance, Indonesia. Now for the keynote speech, I would like to invite the CEO and board member of Aktif Bank, Dr. Serdar Sümer.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear panelists, good afternoon. I would like to thank, first of all, to the organization for inviting me to this such an important event. The timing of the event is very important for us because right now we are in the process of issuing the first green sukuk of Turkey. The economic environment is all changing, all we know that. The liquidity is drying up since 2013, and now the investors are changing. Investors are looking for more social impact, more transparency, and more ethical investments. So right now we are in the changing process of how we invest and how we reach funding. This requires us to revisit our old traditions, and so we need to look everything a little bit differently. And once we think about Islamic finance have the key factors that we are looking for now today. Since it is difficult to reach funding, Islamic finance always put something underneath for financial activities. For it's a asset-based financing, which is very crucial for the investors. Second, the nature of Islamic finance is ethical. So in most cases, what you finance is in line with your investor goals, such as transparency, such as social impact, again, and such as sustainability. And also, when we look at the Islamic finance, financial inclusion is also an important factor because it's obvious. When there is a conventional debt instrument, only conventional investors can invest. So Sukuk investors, the investors who are avoiding riba cannot invest. But when you issue a Sukuk, both conventional and Islamic investors can invest. So you are actually reaching to a more broader base investors. At this stage, also I would like to a little bit discuss the Turkish capital markets in terms of Islamic finance. When you look at the Islamic capital markets of Turkey, unfortunately, you see that its size is around 5% of total capital markets of Turkey. And it goes back to 7 or 8 years. The first Sukuk issued in 2011 in Turkey. And again, when you look more deeply, you see that most of the time, government and financial institutions are issuing these Sukuks, and these issues are, again, mostly about Muraba and Wakala type Sukuks, which are not asset-based. There are some exceptions. For instance, the Sukuk issuance that we did as Aktif Bank in 2011 and 2012, they are based on Mudaraba Sukuk structures, so they are based on assets. Even before the Sukuk regulation, we issued the first Islamic financial debt certificate in Istanbul Stock Exchange. But these are rare examples. And also, when we talk about Sukuks and when we talk about social impacts, solar energy is an important area that we can focus because we believe that you can finance green projects, green energy projects with Sukuk. It's a perfect fit. In Turkey, Active Bank, we are focusing on energy projects, financing of energy projects for the last year, 2017, and we have financed around 30 projects in 16 different cities of Turkey, and total capacity of these projects are around 250 megawatts. And now we want to go to second phase. Now we already financed these projects, but we want to increase our capacity by issuing the green Sukuk that we are planning next year. And our Sukuk will be, again, an innovative structure. As I mentioned before, in Turkey you will see Muraba, Vakala, and you can see from our issuances Mudaraba structures. But this one will be diminishing Musharaka structure, which is the first time in Turkey, which we believe it's an innovative way of approaching these project finance Sukuks. When we issue this Sukuk, the size that we are planning is 500 million Turkish liras. And again, the issuance will be in 2019. Right now, in the process of getting the final approval from Capital Markets Board. This 500 million Turkish lira will be invested in, again, solar, biomass, and other type of green energy projects. Also, for today's discussion and for today's keynote, I would like to also thank to Istanbul International Center for Private Sector in Development, which is a long name, and also their platform, Global Islamic Finance and Impact Investing Platform, which they made the very important workshop last year, 2018, this year, March, about the green Sukuks and Islamic finance, which also give us a lot of motivation for the Turkish investors and investment banks. Ladies and gentlemen, as the largest investment bank of Turkey, Aktif Bank, we believe Islamic finance, and we know there is a lot of room to go in this area. And also, distribution is very important. Right now, distribution is how you reach these investors, especially in Turkey. When you speak about distribution, banks are actually capturing this area. So there are some electronic platforms like Tefas. We believe that it is a very useful tool that we can also put our Sukuks in that platform. And also, if we can use other physical networks, such as Turkish Post Office, and such as other networks that, for instance, Aktif Bank owns around 15,000 networks, physical points. For distribution this type of Sukuks, I think we can reach our goals for financial inclusion. Because of the time constraints, I would like to stop here, and I would like to thank you all for listening my speech and wish a successful panel for the distinguished panelists. Thank you very much.
Very much indeed. It's a welcoming address. I'd like now to kick off the panel session. My name is Richard de Belder. By background, I'm a lawyer. I used to be the global head of Islamic finance for a major international law firm. And today I'm here in my capacity as advisory board member of UK Islamic Finance Council, which is a not-for-profit organization in the UK that promotes Islamic finance and ethical finance. So we have a very keen interest in terms of the developments taking place with green Sukuk. The panelists, so going from my far right, we have Tariq Malaikum. He's the program lead for Sukuk and capital markets with Islamic Corporation for the Development of the Private Sector in Jeddah. And to my immediate right, we have Dawood Ashraf, who's a senior researcher at Islamic Research and Training Institute of the Islamic Development Bank in Saudi. To my left, we have Zalina Shamsuddin, who's the head of strategy and business development, Capital Markets Malaysia, the Securities Commission. And to my extreme left, we have Ms. Restianti, who's the Deputy Director, Ministry of Finance. So we have quite a range of people, regulators. We have going to have a presentation on the recent Indonesian green Sukuk. And we have people on my far right, who are involved in Islamic research in terms of Islamic finance products, and also involved in the actual practical application of those ideas into structures and financings. In terms of the SDGs, most of you will be aware of the UN SDG goals. There are clearly a lot of challenges in trying to achieve these goals, the main one of which is going to be money. And so in terms of looking for different sources of finance, Islamic finance, which I know in Turkey is called participation banking, and in other countries such as Nigeria is called non-interest banking, offers an interesting opportunity. And it's also an opportunity for the Islamic finance sector. Islamic finance has grown significantly since I was involved in it 25 years ago. But it's reached, I think, in my view, a crossroads, because to push itself forwards, it needs, I think, to go back to some of the key principles in the Maqasid al-Sharia. And arising out of that, the movement into ethical finance, and in particular in what we're discussing today, green Sukuk, I think offers a real opportunity for the Islamic finance sector. And I know our panelists would touch on that. There are big challenges, though. I know UNDP, through the Istanbul International Center for Private Sector and Development, is looking at helping some of the poorer countries in capacity building, because there's a real challenge for some of the poorer countries that want to tap into products such as green Sukuk. So that's another interesting area that will need to be addressed in order for the Islamic finance sector to make the most of these opportunities. Anyway, now let's kick off with some of the panelists. The first person I'd like to ask for input is Zelina. And the issue is really, what's your view on how to build a successful, sustainable finance ecosystem in emerging markets? Should one take a top-down approach? And what role does the regulator play in this? And in particular, in Malaysia, how has this proved to be successful?
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. To answer this question, I think it's best for me to highlight the experience Malaysia's gone through. Fundamentally, how we've approached sustainable finance, we've taken a 5I approach. We've looked at it from a comprehensive angle, whereupon we've ensured that we've provided a facilitative ecosystem from an issuer point of view, an investor point of view, instruments, internal culture, and finally we also look at knowledge, intellectual structure. So what we've done is the regulator has taken a position that they will lead in this, and they have put in place policies and frameworks to develop all 5. So to answer your question of what does it take to build a successful system, I think it needs to be approached from all angles in terms of whether it should be a top-down approach. In Malaysia, that's worked. I think especially in the area of sustainable finance, sustainable capitalism itself, it's something that we didn't naturally see the market driving it. So we felt that the regulators, the public sector had to drive it. And top-down meaning we started educating the institutional investors first, because for anything to work, for anything to be successful, the money has to flow in that direction. And the primary money comes from institutional investors. So yes, definitely a top-down approach. However, we are embarking on awareness programs for the retail level, because this is an issue that affects all of us as individuals. I think everyone will feel that we are somehow connected to this issue. So it's just not a finance issue. It's an issue of our future collectively.
Thanks, Alina, for that. Let's just go back to some of the basics now in terms of Dawood's input. We're working on the premise that SDGs are compatible with Sharia principles and aims. So maybe we can explore that a bit further, Dawood.
Thank you very much, Richard. I think we need to go back a little bit further when we talk about the SDGs. So we just finished our Millennium Development Goals in 2015 with great success, especially in terms of reducing poverty. And then this new SDGs, when it is agreed in 2015. So to me, when I look at the SDGs, although there are 17 numbers and so many indicators, it's a big jargon. But when I look at them, and it gives me the pleasure of seeing them in two groups. So one group is the people group that deals with individuals, society, countries, and the other side is the planet group. So in the planet group, we have the climate change, the energy, and all those things, health, and all those things. So when first time we start looking at the SDGs, and we are very much used to looking at all the transaction in the light of Maqasid al-Sharia at Islamic Development Bank, and especially at the Islamic Research and Training Institute. So what we found that this people and planet dimension of SDGs is very much aligned with the Maqasid al-Sharia, which basically, if I have to explain to you, it deals with the five basic elements. It deals with the protection of faith, it deals with protection of progeny, it deals with the protection of soul, it deals with the protection of, I'm sorry, I'm just going through the numbers, and your offspring and mind. So when I'm looking at all these SDGs and then trying to see how it is related with the Islamic finance, the basic principles, so it all boils down to one basic principles of Islamic finance, or in general, the concept of Islam is the duty to care. So when we talk about the duty to care, the SDGs basically are talking about how to protect the planet, how to make sure that the people are fed properly, how to make sure they are educated well. So all these things fit well within the concept of the Islamic Maqasid al-Sharia, Islamic finance. So looking at this side, we see that there is a clear alignment between the two. However, this alignment needs to go further. It should not just stay at the level of philosophical level, rather it needs to go further down to a level which gets us to the transaction level. People could see that alignment and can be able to align these two together. And I think this panel, when we are sitting in, is something which is in the right direction, where we are talking about how to align the concept of Islamic finance vis-a-vis the SDGs. Now, I know there are, we have people on my right-hand side interested in transaction, on left-hand side regulator, and all those people, they are very much interested in all those things. But the most important part that we have to see in this whole thing is that this is a win-win situation for everybody. When we talk about the green financing and take out the Islamic part, we miss a major class of investors from it. So the SDGs looking for green financing and marrying it with the Islamic finance will bring in not only the traditional investors, it will also bring in the green investors and also the Islamic investors. So having three investor, broader class of people interested in investing in that, it will make life easy for the person who are looking for the transactions. You got a broader base of investors, and also make life easier for the regulators as well. So to me, this marrying of Maqasid al-Sharia with SDG is definitely a good deal for everybody.
Thanks very much for that. Let's just move on now to some the practical application. And Tariq, Can you perhaps give us some practical issues that you've come across in terms of green Sukuk or SRI Sukuk, and how you've dealt with those, or you're aware of how other people have dealt with them?
Yeah, sure. Before starting, I think it's important to kind of also take a step back and look at green financing in general. I mean, it's still considered kind of a new industry, hasn't been around for so long. So as we go forward, we're hoping to see more such green products coming to market, not only the green bonds or the green sukuk. And the understanding of what is green to kind of be a broader understanding, not only renewable energy, but as you know now, you have green buildings. So as the carbon emission of corporates and sovereigns gets more and more important, I think the industry itself will develop further. And also looking at the credit risk side, the creditors might look at this as the carbon output as a credit risk for the corporate. So in the end, affecting the rating of the issuance. So this is something that will be developed in the future. As to kind of challenges when issuing a green sukuk, I think the major challenges are 4 major challenges. First, the risk profile for the investor. A lot of times renewable energy is looked at as a new industry, and there's new technology involved. So some investors might be apprehensive for these kind of notes. That said, that will obviously affect the end pricing of the issuance. So the issuer will always have that, is it more important for me to issue at a lower cost or issue a green sukuk and have that impact? Another key issue is the liquidity of sukuks. In general, we've seen, even though a lot of sukuks are traded, the activity of trading is not that high. A lot of investors subscribe and hold to maturity. So you're attracting new investors, and mostly what I've seen recently, people asking about green sukuk are European investors. And they want an instrument that is highly liquid. So you have that also, that plays a key factor. And then we are talking about also a key factor is investors' confidence and understanding of what is green sukuk. So traditional sukuk investors, even though there's been a couple of green sukuk issued, are not as familiar as other investors or European investors or Western investors when it comes to green and carbon emission, and they're still learning and catching up with the market. So kind of explaining this to investors and showing that there is a certain standards for green sukuks and the monitoring system that you can apply to see how impactful these projects are. And that goes back to the standardizing monitoring mechanisms, which are not really set. So who takes the responsibility of seeing what kind of impact this green sukuk actually has, the end product, right? So if the issuer is the one who's going to have to follow up on the issuance and see what impact, environmental impact it has had, then this might be an extra cost for the issuer, which goes back to the point, okay, if it's going to be at a higher cost for the issuer, is it worth issuing a green sukuk? Personally, how I see this working in the future is working on PPP projects where an MDB would be involved, and they will be taking the completion risk of the project, and then you come in with a green sukuk and you refinance the whole project, and you have that appetite, of investors who have a less risk appetite to subscribe to these sukuk.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tarek. I think we're going to now have a presentation from about the recent Republic of Indonesia sovereign green sukuk. So I'd like Restiana, if you could, you're going to go to the stand? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, about 10 minutes. About 10 minutes, yeah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and distinguished moderator and speakers of the sessions, and also distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the audience of this panel discussion. I would like to present a brief presentation about the Indonesian situation, about the preparation to issue the green sukuk and the lesson learned that we got from this issuance. Okay, the first one. This is the journey of global green sukuk issuance. The first step is preparation. We're studying through workshop series with expertise and also the investment banks and also the green bond issuers. And then the next step, we selected eligible green projects from list of government projects, And also we select from through the budget system, budgeting, budgeting tagging system. This is the process to identify the expenditure of projects, and that deliver specified climate change benefits in accordance with the GOI's climate objectives. And after that, we established a green sukuk framework, which was in accordance with the green bond principles. This framework was developed with the assistance of our colleagues from the banks, And for the budget tagging system, we also assisted, we get assistance from the UNDP. And after we established the framework, and this framework was reviewed by the, independent reviewer, in this case is Cicero, Cicero give us the medium green opinion from Cicero, We got the medium green opinion from Cicero. And next step we did the roadshow because this is the one of the key factor which make the issuance successful, because we have to meet to our green investors. We have to introduce our products, It means that we want to reach the dedicated green investor. And after that, we do the transaction. The transaction is quite successful because we have oversubscribed until 2.4 times, The issuance was 1.25 billion US dollar, but the book order is 3 billion US dollar. And now we are in the process of reporting our green sukuk. Okay, because this is the rule that reporting should be published at the latest of 1 year after the transaction. So this is, we have to work hard for, to do the reporting. Okay, we go to the next. Why green sukuk? Indonesia has already issued the the global bonds from 2004 and global sukuk from 2009. But why we do the green sukuk? Because because we want to demonstrate the innovation of Islamic financing instruments and promoting sustainable financing. We use we use this green sukuk because also the regulatory legal framework also enable the usage of sukuk proceeds to finance the project directly. And the preparation and due diligence of the projects is quite easy, yeah, because this to be used as underlying asset. And the use of proceeds principle of green bond or to eligible green project, in this case is a green sukuk, quite similar to regular sukuk issuance, which we utilize projects as underlying asset. And we want to broaden our investor. In this case is we want to broaden our investor basis from the green investors. Okay, and then the next. Yeah, this is our transaction, ladies and gentlemen. The issuance was in the first March of 2018, and the maturity first March of 2023, because the tenor is 5 year. The volume of issuance is 1.25 billion US dollar, and the return is 3.75% at par. USD benchmark is at that time was 2.375%. Reoffer spread is 109.5 bips, and we list the green sukuk in Singapore Stock Exchange and also Nasdaq Dubai. And the joint lead managers which was involved in the issuance was EDIP, Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank, CIMB, Citigroup, DIB, Dubai Islamic Bank, and HSBC. And distribution by geography, we allocate the issuance to Indonesia 10%, Europe 15%, US 18%, Asia 25%, and Islamic investors was 32%. And distribution by investor type for private bank like 1%. For the pension fund, yeah, or insurance, we allocated about 10%. For the central bank and like social wealth fund, 20%. For the asset and fund manager, 29%, and bank, 40%. So we would like this green sukuk is also liquid, yeah. We want this sukuk liquid in the secondary market. So that's why we allocate quite big in for the banks and also for fund managers. And surprisingly, green investor distribution reached 29% here. Yeah, hopefully the next issuance we can get higher green investors than this issuance. I would like also to inform you that this is the first USD green sukuk issued by sovereign entity. Yeah. And this book order of 3 billion US dollar was the largest bid of global sukuk issuance from a non-GCC sovereign entity. And USD 7 billion, it means that the order book for the two type of sukuk here, green sukuk and also the regular sukuk. Yeah, the regular sukuk we issued 1.75 billion US dollar. This was the 7 billion US dollars was a final order all together with regular global sukuk. Okay, and this is the lowest record of spread to USD among Sukuk offers by Republic of Indonesia, and this was recorded of the lowest yield difference of 5 years and 10 years at 65 bips among Sukuk offers by the Republic of Indonesia.
If you could wrap it up in a couple
Yeah.
of minutes. Okay.
This is the lesson learned that we got from the issuance. In pre-issuance, we commit and we have a strong commitment. We have get the strong commitment from the high level and relevant ministries and also coordination between the line ministries in order to get the successful transaction. And in the pre-issuance, we have no expertise and experience, so that's why we need to find right and good partners and advisors here. Long journey with many steps here. Yeah, the 3 important steps are budget tagging. Yeah, we assisted by UNDP. Green framework, yeah, we also partnered with our fellow bank and also reviewed by Cicero. During issuance, we got lesson that we have to get the right GLMs so they can support both green and Sukuk issuance. And also roadshow is key factors that was important. Because this is the new instruments and we have to tap the new investors, so that's why we have to meet with the new investor or the green investors. We have a need to show government commitment on green development at the climate change, yeah. And you know that when we issued the transaction in February, March of this year, the market is very volatile, and the global condition was not conducive at that time. So we have to find the right windows to issue the Sukuk. And for the post-issuance, we learned that we have to make the reporting, so that's why we need support and cooperation from relevant ministries, line ministries within our country, and we have a need to get assistance from the experts like UNDP, World Bank, etc. To define the indicators, to select the auditors and design reporting system, yeah, because we want the reporting work by system because the process will be reported every year. So this is the big work, yeah, to do.
Restiana, could you wrap it up for a couple of minutes, yeah?
Oh, okay, thank you. Only one slide. Okay, this is going forward. The Ministry of Finance would like to continue the process, to issue the green Sukuk, yeah, in the future, because this is the strong commitment of the government of Indonesia to combat climate change. And there is a possibility that government of Indonesia will issue the thematic Sukuk, thematic global Sukuk. This is was it like the innovation? I don't know. Maybe we just making the study about what's the thematic Sukuk that we can adopt to the next issuance, and also we have a possibility to develop and issue another social responsibility investment instrument in the next future. So that's my sharing about the green Sukuk issuance from the government of Indonesia. Hopefully this can give some benefits from the audience in this session. Thank you very much for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thanks, Restiani. Congratulations, by the way, to the Indonesian government. It's a major Sukuk issuance, and I think it's sort of invigorated the market. Turning back now to Malaysia, be interested to hear from Zarina what Malaysia's planning to do in terms of carrying on its fantastic innovative work that it's undertaken the last 10 years in terms of moving Malaysia forwards into and continuing to be a major player in the Islamic finance space.
Okay. I think what we would like to do is definitely leverage on our leadership at the moment. As most of you are aware, Malaysia accounts for just under 50% of all the global Sukuk issuances currently. We have the largest number of funds, Islamic funds, and we have been pushing the agenda for Islamic finance to become a conventional form of finance globally through our knowledge sharing platforms, through our research and collaborations with international parties like UNDP and IDB. What we would like to do is very much for us to sort of maintain this leadership. It goes back to what Dawood said earlier, which is we now need to focus on broadening the investor base for Islamic finance. So we can't keep looking at the Islamic investors anymore. We need to now innovate and start making Islamic finance a mainstream form of finance. And the natural way for us to do this at this point is by highlighting the alignment between Islamic finance and responsible investing. These underlying principles are very similar, and the challenge that the conventional world has at the moment is they don't understand that. And so what we're doing is we're doing it twofold. One is we're trying to increase knowledge sharing platforms. We're trying to create greater awareness on the relationship between Islamic finance and responsible investing, and we've gotten quite a bit of traction on that. For example, we've had UNPRI write a paper recognizing Islamic finance as a form of, as a principle of responsible investing. We have the global network of responsible investors have clearly identified that Islamic finance is a form of responsible investments by identifying Malaysia as the leader in sustainable funds in Asia in lieu of its Islamic finance funds. So essentially, besides increasing awareness, I think the other thing that we're focusing is on innovation. Besides Indonesia's amazing sovereign green Sukuk, what we have done is to leverage on the frameworks that we have created. We now have 5 green Sukuks in place. The first was from Malaysia. This is primarily in renewable energy space. We're also looking at buildings. We're looking at waste management. Recently, HSBC issued its first Sdg Sukuk out of Malaysia. So the way we're looking at it is how to innovate in terms of the products and the instrument base that we have, and concurrently create that awareness globally, and hopefully we will get on to the next phase of growth for Islamic finance.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, as a follow-on from that, I mean, Dawood, one of the challenges, even in the conventional space, is just educating people about SDGs, helping, again, which I mentioned earlier, the poorer countries in terms of capacity building. But in the Islamic finance space, I think there's also a challenge. So it'd be interesting to hear what IDB has done in terms of initiatives with other organizations to basically educate people about green Sukuk, SDGs, and in particular with a Sharia-compliant layer on top.
Thank you very much, Richard. I think this is a very pertinent question related to both the SDGs and the Islamic finance. Among the 17 SDGs, I love the number 17. which is the partnership. And I know it's very hard to take care of the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then getting to the 17. So I pick up the last one, not because that was easy to remember, but because it has the potential to achieve the remaining 16. I refer here to the our ISDB president 5 years plan. And in that 5-year plan, one of the most ambitious aim of the bank is to be the helping hand of the developers. So we are not financing, we do not see ourselves as financing the development, we are seeing as the developer of the developers. And that means we are looking at the knowledge development, we are looking at enhancing the partnership among the institutions, and we are looking at making sure that the impact that we are looking at is achieved through more closer relationship with other partners. In this regard, ISDB is working with different partners. We work with the World Bank. Today we have launched our second global report on Islamic finance, and that report is addressing one of the core issues with the SDGs, that is financing for the long-term investment. So when we're talking about the SDGs, we're not looking at a term of 5 years. We're not looking at a term of 10 years. We are looking at a term of 15 and beyond years, number of years. And having the investors in that domain requires just not the short-term return. It requires more of thinking, living with the project. And living with the project brings in this green concept, living the social responsible investing concept. And what engulfs this whole concept is the Islamic finance. That is not only responsible, but also taking care of the green part, taking care of the planet, taking care of the people as well. So in this respect, I'll give you a couple of more relevant partnerships, although there are so many that I can sit down here and can talk for hours. But the one that I am personally involved in is our partnership with the UNDP on 2 levels. The one is on how to mainstream Islamic finance for the development professionals, and the second is the initiative of Global Islamic Finance Impact Investing Platform. So the first initiative basically deals with the people who are on the ground, how you can see Islamic finance can help you in achieving your KPIs, at the same time helping people who you may not be able to reach in normals with the traditional finance. And second, the Global Islamic Impact Investing Platform, basically it's an initiative by our this center in Istanbul from the UNDP, the Private Sector Development Center, and that initiative basically deals with the core issue that whenever we think about Islamic finance, we usually see more of the philanthropic concept. What we see is more of the asset-based financing. We talk more at the level of transaction in terms of the assets and all those things. But what it does, the impact investing bring in, that you can see Islamic finance not only in terms of all the benefit of Islamic finance, but you see that following the faith, you are still able to earn a financial return that you need. And in that, I see that there are a lot of noise around now. We see more partners. Securities Commission Malaysia has is a really great partner. We have from the private sector as well, other partners as well. So hopefully, this platform would be a good place for meeting the investors and the projects as well. So I'll leave it here, and then if there is a question, I will definitely take it afterward.
Got one more, got 3 minutes, okay? Just from a practical perspective, I mean, how do you analyze whether a renewable energy project is Sharia compliant? In particular, I suppose what I'm driving at is where you have a transaction. What is the role and interaction with the Sharia scholars?
I think 3 minutes, okay. I think this goes back to how do we monitor and look at which SDG is this Sukuk actually impacting. I mean, if you're going to leave that to the issuer, will he actually follow up and make sure that things are going as set out in the prospectus? Because as you know, in the Sukuk's prospectus, you can be very specific on the use of proceeds. Where do the Sharia scholars come in, I think, is back to innovation, where coming up with structures that are not only acceptable to the common Sukuk investor, but also international investors, and making it more of a broad investor base. So working together with the Sharia scholars to come up with such structures. And also, for example, at ICD, we have a monitoring and evaluation department which looks at our transactions and which SDGs it impacts. So this could be another way of working together with the issuer to kind of actually pinpoint which SDG is actually being impacted after like a year or two of the issuance of the Sukuk.
Well done. Well, we've clearly run out of time, I'm afraid. If you've got any questions, get hold of these guys afterwards. But thank you very much, and I'd like to thank all my panelists and round of applause. Thank you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you to our moderator and the panelists for their interesting presentations. This year, Bosphorus Summit has planted a tree in the name of our participants. Now, may I kindly now invite Gülçin Sayılgan from UNDP to present their certificates to our distinguished guests.